What if the biggest story in human history is the one we are all being told to ignore? What if the strange new light in our sky, a celestial anomaly the official channels are calmly and consistently dismissing as a simple comet, isn't a comet at all? What if it's actually a clock, counting down to a singular moment that will not just change, but completely redefine our place in the universe forever? Tonight, we journey into the heart of a cosmic enigma, a story that is unfolding in real time, right now, above our very heads. It is a story obscured by a curtain of censored data, a suspiciously timed government shutdown, and a chorus of official voices telling us there is nothing to see here. This is the story of 3I Atlas, an interstellar visitor that seems to break the fundamental laws of physics and challenges the very foundation of what we believe about the cosmos. This isn't just a story about a rock in space. It's about a chilling and increasingly plausible hypothesis that what we think we're seeing is merely a grand illusion, a cosmic magic trick designed as the perfect distraction for a threat we're not meant to see until it is far, far too late. So settle in, find a comfortable seat, and prepare to question everything you think you know. Because the story of 3I Atlas isn't just happening out there in the cold darkness of space. It's a puzzle that will force you to confront the most profound question of all. Are we truly alone in the universe? And if we're not, have we just been found? Imagine the scene, a moment of serene and predictable celestial beauty. All across the globe, telescopes, both professional and amateur, are trained on the night sky. They are pointed at the moon, which is slowly being consumed by the Earth's shadow, its familiar silver face transforming into a deep, haunting, blood-red hue. This is a total lunar eclipse, a celestial spectacle that is as beautiful as it is predictable. Humanity has witnessed this cosmic ballet for millennia, charting its course, understanding its mechanics, and weaving it into our myths and legends. It is a comforting reminder of the clockwork precision of our solar system. But on this particular night, as the final sliver of moonlight vanishes and the Earth's shadow swallows the moon whole, something else happens. Far beyond our moon, in the deep void, an interstellar traveler named 3I Atlas, a faint, rust-red object on a lonely multi-million-year journey from another star system, does the impossible. At the exact moment of total eclipse, as if responding to a celestial cue, it instantaneously changes color. It shifts from its dull, unremarkable red to a brilliant, luminous, and utterly unnatural green. This wasn't a gradual warming, not a slow chemical reaction unfolding over minutes or hours. It was as if, across the vast and empty expanse of space, a switch had been flipped. One moment, it was a dormant rock. The next, it was a beacon. In the world of astrophysics, an object's color is its autobiography. It is a language written in light. That light tells us what it's made of, its temperature, its age, and its history. For an object to undergo an instantaneous wholesale change in its fundamental properties is more than just an anomaly. It is an event that defies any known natural explanation. It is like watching a granite mountain suddenly and completely turn into solid gold in the blink of an eye. The laws of physics as we understand them simply do not allow for it. Immediately, the world's most powerful spectrographs, incredible instruments that can dissect a beam of light and read its chemical composition with astonishing precision, were focused on this baffling new green glow. The data they returned, beamed down to Earth and analyzed in labs from Chile to Hawaii, only deepened the mystery. They detected an impossibly steep spike in the production of cyanide. Now, comets can and do contain frozen cyanide that turns into a gas as they get closer to the sun and warm up. But what we were seeing wasn't the gentle, predictable fizz of a melting ice ball. This was a chemical eruption, a massive and sudden release of gas that dwarfed any known cometary process by orders of magnitude. The sheer volume was staggering, but it was the speed of the release that truly defied explanation. But the cyanide, as shocking as it was, wasn't the detail that sent a wave of quiet, chilling panic rippling through the corridors of the global scientific community. It was the presence of something else in the spectrographs, something that had no business being there: industrial nickel. This is a critical distinction. We're not talking about the kind of raw, cosmic nickel that is forged in the fiery heart of a dying star. This was the specific spectral signature of processed, refined nickel, the kind of nickel that we here on Earth use for advanced manufacturing, for creating high-temperature alloys used in jet engines and spacecraft. And alongside this impossible discovery came the most glaring contradiction of all: a complete and utter absence of its cosmic twin, iron. Nickel and iron are created together in the same stellar furnaces. In the natural world, they are cosmically inseparable. Finding one without the other is like finding a human skeleton with no bones. It points not to a natural object forged by gravity and time, but to a manufactured one. This activation event, so perfectly and impossibly synchronized with our lunar eclipse, transformed 3I Atlas from a mere scientific curiosity into the most profound and unsettling mystery humanity has ever faced. The luminous green glow, the torrent of cyanide, and the impossible chemistry were not the fingerprints of a comet. They were the industrial signatures of a machine. The question was no longer simply what it was, but why. Why had it chosen this specific moment? A moment when so many of our eyes were already turned to the heavens, to turn itself on. Within the inner circle of Harvard's Galileo project, a group of world-class scientists dedicated specifically to the search for extraterrestrial technological signatures, or technosignatures, a chilling and audacious theory began to take shape. This group is led by the famously tenacious and often controversial astrophysicist Avi Loeb, a man who has long championed the idea that we are not alone, and that science must be more open to the possibility of extraterrestrial intelligence. Loeb and his team looked at the bizarre behavior of 3I Atlas not as a series of confusing, unrelated data points, but as a deliberate and coherent strategy. The theory that emerged from their late-night debates, their encrypted communications, and their frantic reanalysis of the data was as brilliant as it was terrifying. What if 3I Atlas isn't the mission? What if it's the perfect distraction? Consider the logic from a purely tactical standpoint. If you were an advanced intelligence aiming to reconnoiter a potentially inhabited and therefore unpredictable solar system, you would not send your primary assets in first. That would be reckless. Instead, you would send something loud, bright, and utterly captivating, a spectacle so dazzling and strange that it is guaranteed to draw every eye and every sensor. 3I Atlas fits this role perfectly. Its immense size, its impossible brightness, and its bizarre, attention-grabbing behavior have made it the undisputed star of the astronomical world. Every major telescope on Earth and in orbit is now locked onto it. The global scientific community is consumed with debating the nature of this mothership, and global news cycles are dominated by its every move, its every subtle change. According to the Decoy hypothesis, this intense focus is the entire point. While the world is mesmerized by the magician's grand flourish, the real trick is happening completely unnoticed elsewhere in the theater. What if, while we are all staring at this brilliant green light in the sky, smaller, stealthier reconnaissance probes have already detached from the primary object and are now silently spreading throughout our solar system? These wouldn't be the gleaming, blinking ships of science fiction. They would be dark, non-reflective, and cold, engineered to absorb radar signals and evade infrared detection. They would move along quiet, unassuming trajectories that mimic the thousands of pieces of space debris and small asteroids already cluttering our orbital paths, making them all but invisible to our current detection methods. Imagine for a moment the profound strategic advantage this would provide. One such probe could be making a quiet pass of the asteroid belt right now, assessing our solar system's mineral wealth and resource potential. Another could be dipping into the upper atmosphere of Jupiter's moon, Europa, deploying microscopic sensors to sample its hidden, subsurface ocean for signs of native life. And a third, a thought that should send a shiver down the spine of every military and intelligence agency on the planet, could be maneuvering into a stable, geosynchronous orbit directly above Earth. From that vantage point, it could be observing our communications networks, mapping our defense installations, and listening to our every word, our every broadcast, our every secret. This is the oldest trick in the Book of Conflict, a strategy as old as humanity itself. The feint, the misdirection. You get your adversary to focus all of their resources and attention on the obvious, noisy threat, so they never see the real danger until it is already in position, and it's too late to do anything about it. To test this very real and terrifying possibility, the Galileo project has undertaken a radical and urgent shift in its observation strategy. They are no longer just staring at 3i Atlas. They have tasked their entire global network of affiliated observatories with a new urgent mission: to hunt for unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP activity, across the entire sky. They are sifting through the immense background noise of the cosmos, searching for the faintest flicker of light, the slightest, unexpected gravitational disturbance, the briefest shadow passing in front of a distant star. They are hunting for the ghosts in the machine, for the real threat they believe is hiding in the long, dark shadow of the brilliant Decoy. The question is no longer just about the object we can all see, but about the ones we were never, ever meant to. In any complex story, timing is everything. And the timing of the next event in this unfolding saga is so exquisitely, so suspiciously precise, that to dismiss it as a mere coincidence requires a level of willful, determined ignorance. As 3i Atlas continued its journey through our solar system, its carefully calculated trajectory brought it on a close flyby of the planet Mars. This was a golden opportunity, a moment the entire astronomical community had been waiting for. Waiting in orbit around the red planet were NASA's high-resolution imagers, the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, and others, the most powerful and sophisticated cameras humanity has anywhere in the inner solar system. For the very first time, we had the chance to resolve 3i Atlas not as a fuzzy point of light, but as a detailed physical object. We could have seen its shape, its surface texture, perhaps even discern technological features like antennae or engine components. The global scientific community was electric with anticipation, counting down the hours, waiting for the flood of data that could finally provide definitive answers and end the speculation. Then, just 2 days, a mere 48 hours, before 3i Atlas made its closest approach to Mars, the United States government shut down. In an instant, all non-essential government services were frozen, and at the very top of that list was NASA. In the blink of an eye, the agency went dark. The planned data release, the one the world was waiting for, was summarily canceled. The brilliant scientists and engineers who operate the Martian probes were furloughed, locked out of their own control rooms, while the European Space Agency and other international partners with their lower-resolution cameras promptly released their blurry and ultimately inconclusive images to the world. NASA, the one agency with the technological ability to see the truth, went completely silent. The official response to the ensuing media outcry was a masterclass in bureaucratic misdirection and obfuscation. Low-level press officers were sent out to offer hollow, unconvincing verbal assurances that everything was normal and that the object was behaving as expected for a comet. But these were just empty words, completely unsupported by a single pixel of actual data. The highest resolution images ever taken of an interstellar object, captured at the most pivotal and revealing moment of its journey, were now locked behind an impenetrable wall of administrative leave and political gridlock. Let's pause and analyze this from a purely strategic perspective. This was not a simple case of bureaucratic incompetence or unlucky timing. A government shutdown is the perfect, plausibly deniable smokescreen. It's a messy internal political affair that most people will grumble about, but ultimately accept as just business as usual in a divided government. But what if it wasn't? What if our cameras on that day saw something unambiguous, something paradigm-shattering, something that would not just rewrite every textbook, but potentially trigger global panic? What if they saw a metallic hull, an antenna array, the unmistakable glint of a manufactured object against the blackness of space? You would not release that data. You would do everything in your power to conceal it. You would create a reason for the silence that had absolutely nothing to do with the truth. This suspiciously timed information blackout strongly, powerfully suggests that the silence was not a procedural hiccup. It was a strategic decision to conceal what our best cameras actually saw. The greatest discovery in human history may have already happened, and we, the public, the people of Earth, have been deemed unworthy, or perhaps unready, to know the truth. With the crucial, potentially world-changing data under lock and key, the scientific community, the very institution we depend on for objective, unbiased truth, splintered and descended into a bitter civil war. The debate over 3i Atlas was no longer a polite, professional exchange of theories in peer-reviewed academic journals. It became a public, vitriolic, and deeply personal feud for the soul of science and the trust of the public. On one side stands the scientific establishment, tenured professors, institutional leaders, and prominent figures who have built their entire careers on a solid foundation of known, predictable physics. Figures like noted astronomer Jason Wright took to public platforms like Twitter and popular podcasts not just to disagree with Avi Loeb, but to actively mock him and his colleagues, calling their work sloppy, sensationalist, and beneath the level of an undergraduate. The core argument of the establishment is, at its heart, an appeal to normalcy. They insist that for every bizarre anomaly associated with 3i Atlas, there must be a natural, if highly unusual, explanation waiting to be discovered. The instantaneous green glow, a previously unknown chemical reaction on a unique type of cometary body. The industrial nickel without its cosmic twin, iron, a flaw in the data, a miscalibration of the spectrograph, or perhaps even a new, undiscovered process of stellar formation. For every piece of impossible evidence, they construct a complex, bespoke, yet determinedly natural hypothesis. Their entire worldview is predicated on the idea that the universe, while strange and wonderful, is not magical. They adhere to the principle that extraordinary claims require extraordinary, undeniable proof, a standard they claim has not yet been met. On the other side is Avi Loeb and his growing camp of dissidents. Loeb argues, with increasing frustration, that the establishment is blinded by its own dogma and a profound intellectual inertia. He accuses them of being so terrified of professional ridicule and the complete upheaval of their cherished scientific paradigms that they are willfully ignoring the mountain of contradictory evidence piling up in front of them. Loeb's argument is rooted in a core scientific principle known as Occam's razor, which states that the simplest explanation that fits all the available facts is usually the right one. He asks a simple, powerful question: what is the single simplest explanation that accounts for all of the anomalies? The instantaneous activation synchronized with our eclipse, the impossible industrial chemistry, the controlled, intelligent-seeming presence, and the bizarre physics-defying trajectory in a single elegant theory? The answer, he insists, is that the object is not natural. It is a piece of technology. This is no longer a simple scientific debate. It is a battle for public trust, waged on podcasts, social media, and in the op-ed pages of major newspapers. Who do you, the public, choose to believe? Do you trust the decorated tenured expert who is telling you to remain calm and trust the established process? Or do you trust the renegade voice who is urging you to look at the evidence for yourself and conclude the obvious? This profound schism has created a dangerous vacuum of authority. When the experts are shouting at each other, the public is left with no one to trust. And into this void flows rampant speculation, fear, and the growing corrosive suspicion that the experts are hiding something from us, creating the perfect fertile ground for the chaos and confusion that was to come. Let's move beyond the chemistry and the politics for a moment and look at the cold, hard numbers. In the cosmos, gravity is king. An object's trajectory is a story written in the unflinching, universal language of mathematics. And the story that 3I Atlas's trajectory tells is one of profound, glaring impossibility. Our telescopes, both on the ground and in space, can clearly see the object expelling a colossal amount of material. We can measure it with great precision. Every single second, 3I Atlas is ejecting roughly 150 kilograms of mass out into space. To put that in perspective, that is the equivalent of an entire adult human being being shot out of an airlock, every single second, 24 hours a day. According to the fundamental laws of physics, specifically Newton's third law of motion, this continuous outgassing should act like a powerful rocket thruster, pushing the object and measurably, observably altering its course. We see this subtle, non-gravitational acceleration with normal comets all the time. It's an expected and well-understood phenomenon. But here is the contradiction that breaks the entire model. Despite this massive, continuous expulsion of material, the trajectory of 3I Atlas remains perfectly, flawlessly governed by gravity alone. It is moving as if that 150 kilograms rocket thruster isn't happening at all. The mathematics presents only one possible way for this to be true. The object must be so incomprehensibly massive, so unbelievably dense, that a continuous thrust of 150 kilograms is like a flea spitting on a freight train. A force so infinitesimally small in comparison to its total mass that it produces no measurable effect on its trajectory. So the mathematicians at the Galileo Project and elsewhere ask the crucial question: what is the absolute minimum mass an object would need to have for this clearly visible outgassing to have no measurable effect on its trajectory? The answer their calculations produced was staggering: 33 billion tons. This would make it thousands of times more massive and denser than any interstellar object we have ever seen or ever thought possible to exist. The statistical probability of such a natural behemoth happening to form and then wander into our specific solar system is, for all practical purposes, zero. It is a cosmic unicorn, an object that, according to our current understanding of the universe, simply should not exist. And to compound this mathematical impossibility, there is the ghost of a signal from our not-so-distant past. When you take the current position and trajectory of this impossibly massive object and trace it backward in time out of our solar system and into the deep interstellar void, its path originates from the precise location in the sky of the mysterious and famous "Wow" signal. That tantalizing 72-second-long radio transmission, detected by the Big Ear radio telescope in 1977, bore all the known hallmarks of an intelligent, targeted extraterrestrial broadcast, and has remained one of science's greatest and most compelling unsolved mysteries. Now, 48 years later, an object with impossible physics has arrived in our solar system from that exact same spot in the sky. The mathematics is telling us a story that feels less and less like astronomy, and more like the prologue to an invasion. Every great story has a moment of supreme, unbearable suspense, a period of darkness where the audience is left to hold its breath and wonder what comes next. For the story of 3I Atlas, that moment is now upon us. Starting on October 29th, the object will disappear from our view. For 51 long days, it will pass behind the sun, placing it in a total observational blackout. Every single telescope on Earth, from the largest professional observatories to the smallest backyard instruments, will be completely blind. Now, this orbital conjunction, as it's called, is a normal, predictable celestial event. What is not normal is the timing. This 51-day period of darkness coincides perfectly, down to the hour, with the object's perihelion, the single point in its long trajectory where it is closest to our Sun. This is the moment of maximum gravitational influence from our star, and therefore, it is the single most fuel-efficient point for any spacecraft to perform a braking maneuver. Any craft trying to enter a stable permanent orbit in our solar system would do exactly this. Fire its retrothrusters at the moment of closest approach, using the Sun's own immense gravity as a powerful brake to get captured into a bound closed orbit. The physics are perfect. The timing is perfect. If 3I Atlas is a controlled piece of technology with the goal of staying here in our solar system, this is the time and the place to make its move conveniently hidden from our prying eyes by the blinding glare of our own star. This leaves us with a terrifying, real-world cliffhanger. For 51 days, we will all be waiting, knowing that on the other side of the Sun, a maneuver could be taking place that will irrevocably change the course of human history. When it emerges from behind the Sun in mid-December, the entire world will be watching, waiting for the answer to one simple, profound question. Is it still on the same trajectory, a hyperbolic exit path, that will see it leave our solar system and fly back out into the cold, dark void? Or will its path have changed? Will it have slowed down, captured by our Sun into a new, permanent orbit around our star? If its path is unchanged, the world, and especially the scientific establishment, will breathe a collective sigh of relief. The mystery will remain, but the immediate sense of threat will dissipate. But if it has slowed, it will be the final, irrefutable proof. It will mean our visitor has chosen to stay. And then we will have to face the much, much more difficult question: why? With the government remaining silent, the scientists at war with each other, and the object itself hidden from view, the public discourse has predictably and tragically collapsed into what can only be described as a conspiracy theory thunderdome. In the vacuum of official, trusted information, any and all theories, no matter how outlandish, now thrive. The Internet is ablaze with speculation, ranging from the mundane and political to the truly mind-bending. Some claim that 3I Atlas is a deep state fabrication, a massive holographic projection designed as a global distraction from an impending financial collapse or a major political scandal. Others have developed intricate and detailed hypotheses connecting it to Oumuamua, that first interstellar visitor from 2017, suggesting that this is a communications relay being set up to create a permanent network with that first mysterious probe. But the most insidious and clever theory, the one that twists the knife of paranoia with chilling precision, is this: the object itself is not the true decoy. The debate about the object is the ultimate distraction. An advanced intelligence, millions of years ahead of us, would certainly be able to predict our reactions. They would know that a mysterious object like this would trigger scientific infighting, government secrecy, and rampant public speculation. They could predict, and perhaps even actively encourage, the very chaos we are now experiencing. By giving us this irresistible, unsolvable mystery, they have cleverly turned our own innate curiosity and our modern tribalism against us. While we are all busy arguing with each other online, fighting on social media about whether it's a comet or a mothership, the real operation, whatever it may be, can proceed completely unimpeded, right under our noses. It is a form of psychological warfare waged on a civilizational scale. The weapon isn't a laser or a bomb. It's a narrative, a story so compelling and divisive that it has turned our own minds into the battlefield. This brings us to the final existential question: what do we do now? We are now faced with a stark philosophical gamble, a kind of Pascal's wager for the end of the world. Let's be extremely conservative and say there is only a tiny 1% chance that Avi Loeb and the dissidents are right, that 3i Atlas is a piece of technology. If we bet on the 99% natural explanation, and we are wrong, the consequence could be our extinction. If we bet on the 1% technology explanation and we are wrong, the only consequence is that a few scientists are embarrassed and some research funding is wasted. The logic is brutal and inescapable. The potential cost of being wrong is so absolute, so final, that we must act as if the 1% chance is a certainty. We have no other rational choice but to treat it as a potential threat, until we can prove otherwise. This gamble is amplified exponentially by the dark forest theory, a chilling and logical solution to the Fermi paradox. The question of, if the universe is full of life, where is everybody? This theory posits that the universe is like a dark forest full of silent, paranoid hunters. In this forest, survival depends on staying hidden and silent. Any civilization that makes noise, as we have been doing for over a century with our radio and television broadcasts, foolishly reveals its location to potential predators. In this terrifying light, 3i Atlas is not a friendly visitor. It is a scout sent by a predator that has seen our fire in the darkness. It is here to assess our capabilities, our resources, and our threat level. And what is most terrifying is that we have no plan. There is no international protocol for this scenario, no coordinated global response. Our governments are silent and secretive. Our scientists are divided and fighting amongst themselves, and our public is lost in a dense fog of information warfare. We are standing at the most critical juncture in human history, utterly and completely unprepared. So what is the lesson we can take from this cosmic ordeal and apply to our own lives right here on Earth? The story of 3i Atlas is a powerful, urgent call for critical thinking. It teaches us that we must question everything, both the official narrative handed down by authorities and the sensationalist alternatives that thrive in the dark corners of the Internet. We must learn to weigh evidence for ourselves, to recognize our own biases, and to become comfortable with the profound discomfort of uncertainty. In an age of rampant disinformation and artificial intelligence-driven propaganda, critical thinking is no longer just an academic skill. It is a vital tool for survival. This story is also a profound and perhaps necessary reminder of perspective. The arrival of this object, whether it proves to be natural or artificial, forces us to look up from our petty squabbles, our political divisions, and our tribal hatreds, and remember that we are all crewmates on a tiny, fragile vessel adrift in an immense and unknown cosmic ocean. The divisions that seem so vitally important to us down here on Earth become utterly meaningless when we are faced with a challenge or a question that comes from the stars. Ultimately, the lesson of 3i Atlas is about preparedness. We were not ready for a global pandemic, and we are certainly not ready for this. We need to be having open, honest, global conversations about the existential risks we face as a species. We cannot afford to be caught by surprise again. As we wait for these 51 days of darkness to pass, as we wait for 3i Atlas to emerge from behind the sun, we have a choice. We can descend into fear, paranoia, and division, or we can use this as a global wake-up call, a chance to come together, to think critically, and to prepare for a future that will undoubtedly be far stranger and more complex than we ever imagined. I will leave you with this one final, thought-provoking question. If this object does prove to be technology, if it has slowed down and entered a stable orbit, and if its occupants ask to speak to our leader, who on Earth would we send? Thank you for joining me on this journey into the heart of the enigma. I wish you and your loved ones good health and clear skies. If this story has sparked your curiosity and made you think, please consider subscribing to the channel to support our continued exploration of the biggest questions in the universe. Until next.